Hello, it's me, Julian Greystoke, author and reader of books. This book, I was nervous. Like, nervous in a good way, anticipatory, but also just regular nervous because I had been hearing such good things about this book. And I know of myself that I am very susceptible to hype. As soon as I hear a bunch of people saying that something is really good, I automatically just hold it to a higher standard, even when I shouldn't, which has resulted in me getting disappointed time and time again. So, I read Nettle and Bone, and what did I think about it? Well, before we get to that, we are gonna read the blurb on Goodreads. I can't get my laptop. Come here. What? It's fine. After years of seeing her sister suffer at the hands of an abusive prince, Mara, the shy, convent-raised third-born daughter, has finally realized that no one is coming to their rescue. No one, except for Mara herself. Seeking help from a powerful grave witch, Mara is offered the tools to kill the prince, if she can complete 3 impossible tasks. But as is the way in tales of princesses, witches, and daughters, the impossible thing is only the beginning. On her quest, Mara is joined by the Grave Witch, a reluctant fairy godmother, a strapping former knight, and a chicken possessed by a demon. Together the 5 of them intend to be the hand that closes around the throat of the prince and frees Mara's family and their kingdom from its tyrannous ruler at last. So now the answer to the burning question, did this book live up to the hype? Yeah, it did. I don't even know what to do with myself. I was listening to the audiobook on a car trip, and I kept thinking, oh, surely this is like a 4-star book. Surely I won't love it that much. And I kept trying to nitpick it like I do and find things to dislike and find reasons to lower its score. And I just have to be honest with myself. I really liked it. And I know that's boring here on YouTube. We don't want to hear when you really like something, but I'll try to go deeper about why I really liked it so you can decide if you want to read it yourself. And also I will, of course, point out things that I didn't love about it because there's nothing perfect in this entire world, and that's okay. The things that I didn't love about this book were obviously hugely outweighed by the things I did love. Now, once again, I have not written down any notes, so I'm just gonna freeform this from my brain space, and hopefully I will hit all of my talking points. I guess maybe I'll start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start, even though that is one of my few critiques about it. The beginning, the blurb even mentions it. The main character, Mara, is supposed to perform 3 impossible tasks for the Grave Witch, the Dust Wife, I think is actually what they end up calling her. Or the Dust Witch? I already can't remember. Doesn't matter. This witch lady who can speak to the dead. So we meet Mara, our main character, halfway through the second of 3 impossible tasks that this woman has already charged her with previous to the beginning of the story. And this is where I think the book makes its biggest stumbling point, is I always say when I am critiquing and helping people figure out their own writing, start where the story starts. That doesn't mean necessarily start with the inciting incident, but start where it feels like the story begins. And this book starts so far beyond where the story starts that it is a little bit disorienting. Like, on the one hand, the scene itself is cool. Mara is working on creating one of the best characters in the book, although honestly they're all the best characters. I don't even think I could pick a favorite. I really loved all of them. But she's creating Bone Dog, who is an amazing character, a skeletal dog. And while the scene is cool, it did leave me feeling a bit confused and like I missed something and like we started in the wrong place. And then after she creates Bone Dog, we then go back to her memories to find out how she got there. And that felt backwards to me. Like, why didn't we just start in the place that set her on this path instead of skipping that? And also her first challenge, like she thinks about what the first challenge was, but we don't even get to watch her do it. And then the third challenge is just like thrown out the window. So it was odd, and it made me wonder if that had something to do with the way that traditional publishing works. In traditional publishing, there is a bigger and bigger push to have basically no preamble to your books. We don't care what the backstory is, we just want to see the character getting straight down to the plot. So I don't know if that was a factor in this, because it felt very backwards that we started out with a character literally mid-quest and then backtracked to find out how and why she was on this quest. And there's like 2 whole elements to her even getting to where she is that are important story beats that we get in like memory and flashback. So her whole thing with her sister is quite lengthy, and she has one sister that just meets an unfortunate end, and then her second sister who she's trying to save from the evil king. And then we get like her background as a nun, because she goes to the convent for a while, and then we get her choice to go see the dust wife about the magic, and she's given the impossible tasks. And it's like, that is a lot of setup to miss at the beginning of your book and be given later.
I do want to clarify that I understand that many books begin in medias res, I think is how it's pronounced, in the middle of the action, and then we backtrack to find out how the character got there. I bet you're wondering how I got into this position. That is a storytelling device. Here, though, I did not feel that it worked. That's what I'm trying to say. Because we catch her mid-quest, but she has such a deep and meaningful reason for her to be on that quest, but we don't get that deep and meaningful reason until we've already gotten the scene with the dog. And for me, that made it not work, because I didn't understand who she was or why she was there. And because we later find out that she has such a deep and meaningful reason, I personally would have started this book out at the beginning where we learn her deep and meaningful reason, instead of skipping ahead to the bone dog and then going back for her reasons. Now, a lot of people probably, this isn't going to bother, and I know that this is a device that I don't even mind in a lot of books. It's just in this one, it particularly did not work for me.
Weirdly structured to me, and I was worried that the weird structure was going to continue, but once we got past that really weird beginning part, everything flowed just fine. So I'm curious if that weird beginning part was the heavy hand of an editor somewhere, or whether the author actually made that choice for herself. Impossible to tell unless I ever go ask her. I can just imagine I end up at some sort of meet and greet for the author of this book, and while everyone else is looking for their autograph and everything, I'm like, so the beginning, your idea? But after that, like I said, oof, woof. Okay, let's go with plot first. We'll just talk about the plot. I really enjoyed the way this story moved, the way it was paced, everything to do with the plot. I had a couple of moments that I was like, this could be slightly better integrated, but overall, I really liked it. It had that fairy tale feel that I loved so much in books like Dealing with Dragons, without being just relying and leaning too much on tropes. That's what I don't like about a lot of modern fiction right now, is that it's putting in tropes without actually doing any work to explore those tropes. And so this book, any tropes that it did use, any fairy tale logic that it did use, the pacing was very fairy tale-like, and all of that it used to its advantage. It made all of those elements its bitch, and I loved that. Now, I have seen some people critiquing this book and saying that it felt too shallow because of the fairy tale style of it, but personally, I feel like I was given the exact perfect amount of information about everything. Not too much, not too little. Just this happy medium where I could understand the world and understand the situations, but also understand that there was a lot of nuance to the world that I didn't know and quite frankly didn't need to know to enjoy the story. So the world felt bigger and like more could be explored, while also giving me enough details to enjoy the part of the world that I was experiencing. I think that's relatable in the way that I write and I do world building as well, because I keep my world building very grounded with the characters, and if the characters don't need to know it and they don't care about it, you're probably not going to find out about it either. And that leaves a feeling of a wider, more mysterious world, which I like, I'm okay with. I don't need to leave a book feeling like I know everything and understand everything, especially a book like this with such a fairy tale tone. I also love how all of the elements are able to weave together. Every little detail that we experience feels like, ooh, I have to hold on to this. This is going to come up later. And it almost always does. There were a couple of times where I was like, there was a theme at one point that just kind of came out of nowhere of you can't force help on someone who doesn't want help. You can't make someone realize that they are in a bad situation unless they want to realize they're in a bad situation, which is a really good message. It's a great message, but it kind of came out of nowhere and went nowhere. Like, it wasn't the overall theme of the book. It was just like a small theme that we met along the way. That felt the most awkward. Like, that one I butted up against the hardest versus any others that we encountered. I was just like, cool, great, this is part of the story. This is what we're doing. The book kept it moving, but at the same time, and this, I love this, while keeping it moving, it also managed to develop the characters. I think this was just, for me, an example of mastercraft in keeping an interesting plot, an intriguing plot, while keeping us grounded with the characters as real people. And that's because the author didn't use archetypes as characters. This author used characters as characters. These felt like real human people. Well, some of them are human. These felt like real people who were here to be people and not here to be hot or broody or, you know, the archetypal hero. They all had flaws and they all had character within themselves. I love that there were two old women as part of this adventuring party. This is the most eclectic adventuring party and I love it. There's two old women, there's a dog made out of bones, there's a chicken who is possessed by a demon. Amazing, I love the chicken, 10 out of 10 chicken. You guys know how I feel about animal characters. I love it so much. But also, the main character is sort of your potentially stereotypical shy character, but you get a lot more insight into her, and her social anxiety was very relatable to me. Those moments where she's like, I could have done that, but then I would have had to like spend an hour psyching myself up to ask a simple question, and then if I didn't get the answer, there were all these permutations, and I don't know if I'm ready to handle those permutations, and I was just like, relatable. That is the most like true portrayal of social anxiety that I have seen in a long time, and it was just so good. And she was aided by another amazing character who turned out to be extroverted, and I'm just like, this is the introvert-extrovert dynamic that like I live with my husband, and I love to see it. So like, while she is feeling very nervous about just doing something simple like asking a vendor at the market a question, he is able to go right up there and schmooze, and she's just like standing back amazed at his abilities. And I'm like, yes, this. And let's talk about that male character. He is not the standard hot broody boy. He is a man with trauma who is not like broody and mean because he has trauma. You know he has trauma, but he turns it into kindness. He turns it into heroism and brave choices instead of just being that boring archetype that we see over and over again of the guy who just turns his trauma into being a giant dick. Like this, the character in this book was just exuding non-toxic masculinity because he was still very masculine. He was a hero, he was a warrior, he was brave. It's just so beautiful to see. Please, more heroes like him in all of our writing, I am begging you. As a result of him being so non-toxic, the romance was adorable. At first I was a little bit like, I don't know if I like this guy, I don't know if I ship it. By the end I was like, if they don't end up together. He was also older, he was 40, and they were two old women, like I said, and our main character, this is something that I found a little bit difficult to believe. Our main character, I believe, is supposed to be in her 30s, but she still sounded like a younger protagonist to me. She had a much younger feel to her, and I don't know, maybe I was a little bit affected by the reader of the book because I was listening to the audio, and she gave the main character a little bit of a higher, a little bit of a younger sounding voice, so maybe that contributed to it. But whenever the main character would remind me that she was like 30, I was like, no, you're not. You're like 21. Part of it might be that I didn't feel like this book had a solid beginning, and maybe if the beginning had moved a little bit more slowly, I would have found it easier to believe that she was in her 30s. So I do love to see a heroine who is my own age. I just wish that I found her to actually seem to be my own age. I love the two older women, they're great. We have the Ashwife, and then we have a fairy godmother who turns out to not be that great at fairy godmothering, and I'm not going to go into any further detail than that, but like her character, I loved what was done with her character, and all of the adventures that they went on. Every single time they went into a new adventure, I was like, oh, maybe this doesn't really pertain to the plot, and then it always did. I was like, how did we get here in this completely strange and bizarre place and still feel like we are moving the plot forward? Again, I want to teach this as a master class on how to have seemingly disparate elements and adventures and parts of an adventure while still feeling like we had momentum in the plot. There was never a moment where I felt like it had stagnated, like we had slowed way too far down. It was always moving towards their goals. This book had the strongest through line. These characters knew what they wanted and they were gonna get it, and even if they had to go to really weird places, like I loved the catacombs, the dungeon underneath the castle where they have to go, and part of it was like it was a little bit like a video game or a old-fashioned quest, because every time that they would try to fulfill some part of the quest, another part would crop up that would take them to a new and interesting place in this world, and I just ate it up with a spoon. It was so good. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about this book. It just had everything that I look for. The plot moved, the characters were all great, like there wasn't a single one that I didn't like. There was great representation for women of all ages. There was an awesome guy character, the dog, the chicken, the other chicken, there's another chicken. I felt like the critic at the end of Ratatouille, like I was trying so hard to find some reason to like knock this down to maybe a 4-star, and by the end I just had to be honest with myself and be like, no, you can't think of anything, can you? Because you loved it and you had a great time. Oh, and, oh no, I love this too. It ended. Like, that sounds weird, but it's not a prequel. It's not the beginning of a series. It's a book with a beginning, middle, and end. It ties up the threads. It answers the questions. Arcs are concluded, and you have no idea how happy that makes me. I am just a standalone book bitch at heart. I just need my books to conclude. Please. Even if it's the first book in a series, I want it to conclude, and then I'll keep reading your series. If each book could have a beginning, middle, and end, please, that would be amazing. Instead of a beginning, middle, more middle, and then please go read the next book. Like, I do need some resolution, personally. Maybe that's just me. But I love that this book resolved. I felt so satisfied by the ending. It didn't drag out the ending or the falling action. There was just enough for me that I could still imagine that these characters are still alive and still going on adventures while being able to close all of the arcs and answer all of the pertinent questions. Chef's kisses for days. So many things are gonna pale in comparison now to this book, and that makes me sad. But I do know that this is what I want to write like. I don't know if I achieve it yet, but you can check out any of my books and see how close I come if you liked Nettle and Bone. See if I get close, because I really focus on my characters as well. And I do have a fairy tale retelling that is Boots, which is a retelling of Puss in Boots, which has nothing to do with Shrek. It's based off of the original story of Puss in Boots. Sorry, not sorry. Anyway, so if you want to see how I do, you can check out my books. But overall, loved Nettle and Bone. Go read it, and then love it too. I know some people have talked about that the pacing is a little bit too fast for them. Not for me, I loved it. They felt that the world building was a little too thin for them. We already talked about that. Not for me, I loved this. This book was the perfect amount of world building for me. Like, exactly the right balance for me as a reader. And all of the characters were 10 out of 10s. Oh, and also because everything ties back to Lightlark and what a pathetic disaster it turned out to be. This book also had the themes of people ages ago fucked something up and now it's our problem, except for this one was done well, unlike Lightlark. So if you read Lightlark and you want a story of people in the past fucked something up with their pettiness and their cruelty and now it's our problem, Nettle and Bone. Oh, and finally, I do want to say that this book has a dog in it, and I always like to let people know if there are animals in books and a chicken. If there are animals in books, do they die? If you don't want to know, just like skip ahead a little bit. But the dog is already dead, but he does die again, but he's brought back, okay? The chicken is fine throughout. Nothing happens to the chicken. There you go, that's the animal stuff. If you are somebody who is sensitive to potential animal deaths like I am, I like to let people be warned if there are animals in a book, what happens to them. But those, I think, are all of my crazy, rambly, intense thoughts about Nettle and Bone. Please check out my books if you're interested. Support me on Patreon. Commission me as your editor over on Ko-fi and Fiverr. And I think that's everything. Oh, you can also just follow me on social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe. You know, the normal things here on YouTube if you want to see more, because my channel is absolutely flooded with content, so go check it out. And I will see all of you again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye!